Welcome to the Dice Gods. My name is Hydra, and today's video is a new one for us because we're going to be talking about Warmachine. Now, first we start with an apology. This video was kindly recorded by the mighty GeneDean, one of our Patreons. We'd spoken for a little bit about him doing some Warmachine content. He put this together, and then through a mixture of COVID and 101 other projects to do, I hadn't got around to editing it. So this is a little bit dated, but have a look, let us know what you think, because we'd like to hear from you, whether you want to see more Warmachine right here on the Dice Gods, because if there is, if that's something you want to see, then GeneDean has offered to do some more for us, and yeah, just let us know if there's something you wanted to see. So, profuse apologies for GeneDean for having to wait this long. Let us know what you think. Thanks for watching.
First off, let me introduce myself. I'm GeneDean29. Hydra has asked me to step in and talk about one of my favorite games of all time, Warmachine. If you've been paying attention to anything going around lately, you know Warmachine is a storied game that's about 15 years old. It was owned by Privateer Press, who just recently sold it to Steamforged Games. And I kind of want to first introduce myself and my history in the game. And then I'm going to tell you the pretty much like basics of the game if you've never experienced it, if you're just like, what is this thing that people are talking about? And then the news from Steamforged, like where they're moving. And then a little bit of speculation on my part, completely and substantially what's going on, the conspiracy theories of an avid fan. And then finally, just like my hopes and plans for what they're going to do with the game and what I'm going to do with the game, because it is something that I actually really care a lot about. So first off, who am I? Like I said, GeneDean29. I've been an avid gamer since I was like 24, 25, and I'm a 44-year-old now. I took a 10-year break because I met my wife, I got married, had a kid, pandemic happened, so forth and so on. And in the last year, I found my way back into hobbying, which is what has always called me to these types of games, the painting and the enjoyment of making a really beautiful looking figure, and the games themselves. And one of my favorite games was Warmachine. The way I discovered it was I went through the normal route of discovering the 800-pound space marine in the room, enjoyed my time with that game, fell in love with specific games that were no longer supported because they were specialist games like Battlefleet Gothic. And so my friends were tossing around this new game called Warmachine. I checked it out and I fell in love with the world that it was in, and I fell in love with the gameplay. I can recount numerous stories of the combos that you can pull off in this game that just made me go, I love it. But that's for another, whatever one of these videos is going to be called. Warmachine Wednesdays, hopefully. And okay, so that's who I am. Let me tell you about what Warmachine is. Warmachine is a skirmish battle game. So it's not a skirmish game where you only have 10 figures, like it's not a Mordheim or a kill team type of game. It's actually designed to be a large army format or a large combat force format where you have multiple units, multiple heavy hitters, multiple different types of troops, with the exception of there's always one general who is called a warcaster or a warlock. Long story short, at one point there was a steam-powered game and then a fantasy game that was more pulpy called Hordes, Warmachine and Hordes. The beautiful thing is they just kind of realized we're going to put the two together, and so it's just Warmachine now. But with both types of gameplay interactions with the general of the army, the warlock, or the warcaster. They're special because they can cast spells. They benefit from what they take, which is warjacks, these giant steam or kind of like lightning powered metal juggernauts. Think like, I mean, it's hard to not say, think like a dreadnought that's steam powered that doesn't have the corpse in it powering it. So it's not so like grimdark. It's just a really cool magical construct. And then you got war beasts, which are like giant trolls, giant elephants, any type of like insane creature combo that you're just like, oh, this is cool. Gatorman. Okay, so when I was playing, the game was really into just like fighting each other, and whoever got the most victory points won, whoever wiped out the most. But when I left the game, it transitioned to objectives, and those objectives had a huge effect on everything that you now play. My argument is, if it wasn't for Warmachine and the tournament scene, Warhammer 40K wouldn't be so objective driven and wouldn't have its tournament around match play. But that's just my rumor and conjecture in that. So yeah, if you are someone who's like a fan of pulpy fantasy or that technology, I like to look at it this way. Imagine magic developed at the same time technology did. So right now, currently in the game, it feels like it's the industrial age between the Victorian era and World War One, maybe a little bit after in some places, where you have steam-powered stuff, you have coal-powered stuff, you have lightning bottled magically, and then you just have terrifying magical abilities coming from everywhere. So that's the game. The current news that actually has what I'm actually seeing for the first time since I got back in the hobby, the internet is like, oh my God, is a huge development happened in the last 6 months. Privateer Press sold it to Steamforged. Steamforged Games was actually founded, from what I know, by fans of Warmachine. Like, they actually loved Warmachine, wanted to do their own thing, and made Steamforged Games. And through my love for Warmachine, I've become aware of what Steamforged does, which it has a lot of great Dungeons and Dragons, role-playing stuff that you can get into, and their miniatures are top-notch. They are some of the best-looking plastic miniatures that you can get. They have games, Elden Ring, Dark Souls, so go check them out. I highly recommend them. In terms of, like, if you want a good-looking game with good-looking miniatures, high production value, that are plastic, awesome. The thing about Steamforged that they did is when they bought Privateer Press, they bought Warmachine Mark IV, they bought Hordes, which is now a part of Warmachine. They bought the Iron Kingdoms RPG. If you have never experienced it, it's actually what gave birth to the skirmish game. A lot of people have loving memories of the RPGs, the Witchfire trilogy. Never got to play it because I came in a little bit after the game itself got released. And what is it? Where am I at? Okay, so they bought the rights for that and a few other things. One of the big ones was P3, a line of acrylic paints that 10, 15 years ago, they were revolutionary because they had the best opacity, they had the best coverage, they were gel-like smoothness. They all had their own issues because you couldn't have any issues, but I especially fell in love with those paints because they didn't dry out all that fast and they went on smooth. They made painting white and ivory easy. And if you remember what it was like 15 years ago trying to paint that color, it was a level of frustration that would make you cry. So, okay, they have, in the last few months, continued the process of rolling out Mark IV, introducing the new factions. The newest faction that has been released is the Crix Necrofactorium, which is actually a classic faction from the game. Now, I'm going to have a quick conversation about one of the big in the game right now that the internet sometimes doesn't really explain well. And it takes someone like me encountering me in the store saying, no, this is what you can do. A lot of people have collected armies from the past, from Marks 1 through 3, first edition to third edition, and they hear that they can't play those armies anymore. And so they're super frustrated because there's no point in getting back into a game because they don't have the models. They can't use their models. This is a very familiar argument right now, or issue, in the tabletop wargaming community. I can't use my models. I spend all that money, I spend all that time, why can't I use my models? So if you're listening to this and that is what you're coming into this conversation, let me say this. You can actually play all your models. The thing that I've been enjoying the most about getting back into the hobby is that you can choose to play 2 different versions. And if you're familiar with Magic the Gathering, this is going to be very familiar. There's the unlimited version, which is all the models that you ever collected from marks 1 through 3 with specific rules that you can play. And then there's Prime, which has 2 groups. Prime has the current factions, and they're ever expanding. Then some of the classic ones are there, like Signar and Khador. But then you have Armies of Legend. They're just changing the term right now. It used to be called Legacy, but whatever. They want to do their thing about, like, we want to make it distinct. So Armies of Legend, like the Protectorate of Menoth, that in Mark IV pretty much was wiped out in the storyline. They retreated south to the continent of Zoo. The theory is they're going to come back someday riding dinosaurs. I doubt that, but it would be cool because there are a bunch of like religious fanatics riding dinosaurs. It'll be fantastic. Oh God. Okay. So, yeah. So when I got back into the game, I started looking at, can I use my Protectorate of Menoth? Can I use my Troll Bloods? And for the most part, with what I had collected, if you have anything from Mark 1 to Mark 2 and a little bit of Mark 3, you can play it. A good example is, I'm going to go to my Road Dogs right now, the ones that I'm going to take to a tournament, the SoCal Frontline Gaming Tournament, Protectorate of Menoth. If you like the Knights Exemplar, that's a distinct cadre that you can play. So I'm rolling out Epic Krios version 2, rolling out my Knights Exemplar, my Knights Errant, my Vanquisher, my Revenger. If you don't know what anything of these are, don't worry about it. For the people that are returning, you get to play 80 to 90% of your old models in the tournament play that is considered the standard, which is Prime. So that's the great news. And then you can play any of the new factions, which takes me to the next big news, which has me excited, which is why I was like, hey, Hydra, can you cover this? Because this is what I want to hear about. Like, you're actually over there. Privateer Press was an American company, but Steamforge is a UK company. And I'm just like, oh my God, you're right next to them. You could actually talk to them. Please talk to them. Let, like, please. And he's like, could you do it? Because I got Infinity, Bolt Action, let's see, Flames of War. What's one of the newer games? It keeps going. I can play, oh yeah, Warcrow, which is actually what made me find Hydra and his channel, just because I was like, who's putting out content about Warcrow? Only him. And so I have become an avid fan of watching his stuff because it's giving me stuff on stuff other than the 800-pound Space Marine in the room. Okay, so they're putting out, Steamforged is putting out a new 2-player starter set that is actually Hips plastic. If you're like, what the heck is Hips plastic? Privateer Press, back in the day, in Warmachine Mark II, started putting out plastic, but it's not Hips plastic. It was single pieces that you had to put together. Hips plastic is spruce. If you're familiar with any type of sprue plastic, it's the stuff that you can probably use plastic cement on. You don't need to use super glue on, and it comes in different parts as opposed to one piece or single multi-pieces. So that makes me incredibly happy because a 2-player starter set like that is easily something that can be like given as a gift. Last time I checked, when I got the pre-order and I ordered my pre-order, it's $100 for 2 sets or 2 armies. They're all named characters, so they get to be unique when you actually play the game. And you can go the classic Signarian army or the classic Khadorian army, but then there's different branches. And we'll get more into that later about like how would you actually build an army in Warmachine. That 2-player starter set has me excited because it's the best way to create a demo box. So yeah, 2-player starter set is coming out in November. That's when the pre-order ends and that's when it's going to sell out. So they also redid the P3 paints to make them modern paints. I feel like they're going the way of the Duncan Rhodes way of doing the paints, which is kickstarting first, and then if it gets into brick and mortar stores, that's good. But they're just going to sell it to the people that will want the paint, and then we'll try out the paint. I have already kickstarted it. I got the 100 paint set because there's colors that I am running low on from my paints from 10 years ago that I'm just like, I need that now because I still use it to this day. I use it on all my armies. From my old world armies to my kill team to my print and play to what are all the other? I have too many games. Okay, so the way it's going to be rolled out, this is a great start for the new game. I don't know what it's going to be, but I have my speculation on the things that have gone down. So let me give you my speculation. And first, let me say this. Steamforged Games is super amiable, super friendly, and super supportive, and super tight-lipped about what's going on. So anything that I say, I think is going to happen is just me looking at the bones and the tea leaves and all that and going, this is what I see. And that's okay. But don't take my word as gospel for what's going to happen. It's kind of like, after being a hobbyist for 20 years, after having seen kind of like the repetitive cycle on the way businesses work, it would make the most sense. So my speculation is they're going to slowly just improve upon what was already there. They're going to build it out, and slowly they're going to build back the fan base because they're still a smallish company. Based off of my experience of being on their Discord, they're a smallish company dealing with a huge onslaught of people that are super interested, super hopeful, and sometimes super bitter about the way the game has gone. And they have handled it with love and tenderness and like we're doing our best and all that. What they don't do, which frustrates a lot of people, is they don't give concrete information about everything and exactly when it's going to come out. My personal opinion is that I think people have been spoiled by the GW hose, that every week you're going to get a preview of something, and then that same week you can pre-order what was sent before. Like, it's never ending, and it's like every weekend something new is coming out, and it's like clockwork because that company can do it. A game like Steamforged reminds me of what it was like 15 years ago. You got things when you got things, and we're grateful for them, and if they never showed up, you kit bashed them. And if you never had rules, sometimes you homebrewed them. And if not, you just moved on and said, maybe one day. And if you're a Bretonian player from 6th edition, you know exactly how long it takes to wait sometimes to get something new for an army. But the awesome part is there's no slowdown from what I've seen. A big thing that they've talked about, and I think this is my speculation on it's going to improve, is because no matter how you feel about it, because the models that they're currently releasing are resin printed, they can have factories in different countries, like Australia, like the US, and like the UK or Europe in general. So that way they can send these models out. I benefit because I live on the west coast of the United States. The company that's, the factory that's still making them is in Seattle, Washington, where Privateer Press was located or is located. It hasn't gone out of business. It just doesn't do the business of Warmachine anymore. I think it still does Monster Apocalypse and all that. You'll have to check it. And so going back to what I was saying, my speculation is once those factories come online, distribution, which has been an issue for a lot of people, like, I want my models now, I want them now, I ordered them 2 months ago, where are they? Which is valid. It'll start occurring. The thing that I'm hoping for and the thing that I'm testing is I have ordered a box of the Vampire Elves, House Kalis, the Dusk Elves, from my local gaming store. I'm still waiting. I ordered it in July. It's okay because it's just giving me time to get caught up on my Menoth and just enjoy them. Or Menoth, I don't know how you say it, Protectorate, okay? So while I wait for the LGSs to get their distribution, which it looks like it's starting to happen, I'm just getting to enjoy it. Everyone's waiting and trying to see it, sometimes with joy, sometimes with Zen-like, Zen-like enlightenment of like, this is the way things are, and sometimes with fiery impatience, which is very historically the stereotype of Warmachine fans. And what I've noticed is that's not the way it is anymore. It's actually like a lot of people are like, I just love this game. I just love the fact that I might get to play it again with folks. So the biggest piece of speculation is we're not going to know anything until it comes out. They released a roadmap, and the roadmap says things are going to come out a little bit slower, and that's okay, because it just gives me time to get caught up and to build back the community I need. And that's pretty much all the speculation I have right now. It's not like, I think the term is super spicy. There's no spiciness because Steamforge is so tight-lipped. There's no scandal happening. There's just things aren't coming out as fast as they want. It's sometimes distribution, sometimes it's producing the models, sometimes it's the models are coming from the US to different areas, and people in Australia and the UK have to wait a little bit longer. And local gaming stores are having to wait until distributors have it. And the way it works is the people who order directly are getting the models first, and then hopefully soon the local gaming stores will be able to do it. Because my hope, and this is going to go into the hopes, my hope is that within a year, I can go to my local gaming store and order stuff from them to support them to get Warmachine to me and my buddies. I don't expect it back on the shelves because there's not a lot of shelf space, and for numerous reasons. And right now, Steamforged has to, and I hope they do this really well, build up the goodwill from the distributors and the local gaming stores, because they're the ones who make you have a chance of being introduced to this game and have a place to play.